Hello, dear friends. My name is Dennis, and you're listening to the new episode of my podcast. I'm very excited and very honored to say welcome to my guest today, Mr. Sascha Hein. Hello, Sasha.
Thanks very much for having me.
How are you?
Very good. Thanks very much. It's. I believe this is the first podcast. It's a true pleasure and honor to be the first interview guest for the first podcast.
Yeah, for me, it's also a great exciting to have you. I know how busy you are, and I'm very, very thankful that you took your time for this podcast. Sasha, I believe for most of the people who are, as I said, are in dental industry, you are very, very popular name. But would you please introduce yourself for these people who don't know you?
So my name is Sascha Hein. I'm a dental technician by trade. Graduated from the Master School in Freiburg, Germany in 2004, and then continued during my life to work in lots of different countries. And then I lived in Australia for 13 years, for a long time. I used to have my own dental laboratory there for 7 years. I'm back in Germany now since about nearly 10 years now, and together with my friends, Dr. Panagiotis Bartzos and Dr. Javier Tapia, I have invented the eLAB system for color measurement of tooth color from RGB images. And right now I'm a postgraduate researcher. I'm a PhD student at Leeds University at the School of Design under Professor Stephen Westland.
Yeah. How was for you this to change from dental technician for dental industry to create or to develop this system, eLAB system, I mean?
So the eLAB system was really born out of necessity. So, like I said, when I used to have my own lab in Perth in Western Australia, the majority of my clients were prosthodontic practices, so referral-based practices. And on top of that, the single central restoration is the most common type of restoration in Australia. It's about 18% of all treatments are single centrals.
Okay.
Would be interesting to understand the reasons for this. I would imagine a lot of these are sporting accidents and pub fights and all sorts of things, but I just had a lot of these single center restorations working for the prosthodontist because, like I say, they are referral-based practices, so they just seem to get a lot of these cases because general practitioners will often just refer them away. And there was a real need, there was a necessity to develop a protocol that would help me to guide me through the process and to be more objective about shade quantification instead of the usual system, which is based on visual shade assessment using shade guides, which is quite unreliable. And this has then paved my path into science. This is where my interest in physics then came from when I pursued more education in physics and then ultimately into color science, which is where I am right now.
Okay. So to say, you realize that the guide we know is not perfect, is not enough precise to match the color, the shade. So you develop this method. What exactly is eLAB? How this work?
So eLAB was the first prototype system where you could take a calibrated RGB image, like a calibrated photo, a digital image of someone's teeth, and you could measure eLAB values of this image. So you could quantify what the luminosity, the brightness of the target tooth color is, how much red it has, and how much yellow it has. And this is expressed in the cLAB system, which is a color appearance system that's been around since 1976, and it has broad applications in all sorts of other industries. It has also been used in dentistry prior to that. Like we were the first one to use eLAB values. I think instrumental shade measurement was introduced in the dental industry in the late 1990s and early 2000s. I was around back then. There was a whole plethora of shade measurement devices that were introduced back in the day. Some of them might still remember them. There was Shade Vision and all sorts of Cinovat and all sorts of devices. Most of them have disappeared. They're no longer produced. There's only the Vita Easy Shade is pretty much the only one that's left from that era, I think. Maybe the Spectra Shade MHD, I'm not sure. But they all declined pretty quickly. And for those reasons you just mentioned, because they had like the Vita colors in it. And that's really difficult because there's no standard for the Vita colors and manufacturers don't necessarily follow those Vita colors. Mm. So you can take an A3, for instance, an A3 sample from 4 or 5 or 6 different manufacturers and they will all look remarkably different.
So what you say, the eLAB is maybe the most precise method to match the right shade right now. So I can imagine something more precise than that eLAB.
From a scientific point of view, we have to be very, very careful when we use expressions like precision and accuracy are very, 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 very narrowly defined. Like in color science, precision is you measure the precision if you take a reference object, typically something like this, a reference tile with known values, right? And you measure this object repeatedly 5, 6, 7, 10 times with a device. And then the average color difference between all these measurements is what we call precision.
Okay.
And accuracy is the comparison between what the device has measured and what these values actually are. So these are two separate things. And, there is no comprehensive analysis available on precision and accuracy in a proper scientific terminology in the field of dental science where different systems have been compared like that.
Okay.
So we have to be careful when we use terms like this. I think the advantage that eLAB has, and I think everybody really understood this really, really quickly because it came from the bench. It was developed by people that had a very practical background in dental photography and in dental technology, right? Mm-hmm. So I come from the era of dental ceramics. I've been an oral design member since I think 2009. So we came from this era of ceramic restorations and dental photography. So we kind of fused these things together. So the advantage of the eLAB system is you've got a nice big photo. You're looking at the entire visual context, all the teeth. And I think us technicians, we're very visual thinking people. We like to work off pictures where we can see everything. And having the advantage of doing like a digital try-in, like trying your restoration in digitally before you deliver it to the surgery, and then also being able to quantify the difference to say, okay, so what is actually missing in my restoration?
Okay.
I think these are the key elements that really everybody kind of understood quite quickly, and I think that's probably the reason why it's been so successful in the last 10 years and why it's been copied so often as well, because there is an essence to it that everybody immediately understands.
Okay. Understand. Okay. Me as a dental technician, what is important to know for this system? What I need a camera, I think. I need a light, and I need a program or software for working with the eLAB. What I need as a dental technician?
Yeah, so eLAB was designed as a photographic protocol. So it started out with Panagiotis Bartzis basically came up with Polarize about nearly also 10 years ago now. So cross-polarization is required because it eliminates the surface gloss from the teeth. Otherwise, you can't measure tooth color. Mm-hmm. So you need that. Then, with the rise of dental photography, I mean, nowadays, every surgery, every dental lab has a camera. They have an equipment that is suitable for photographing teeth. They have macro lenses, and they have some sort of flash, either ring flash or lateral flash. So you probably already have what you need. You don't have to buy an expensive device that is only dedicated to this one single purpose.
Okay.
Because you want to use dental photography for a lot of things in the everyday. So why not measure tooth color with it, right? Okay. Then I developed a gray reference card for this, and then another advanced version of the gray reference card. And this is basically, so the camera equipment, camera lens and flash, which is what you already have, the mentioned polarized filter and the gray reference card is essentially everything that you need if you just wanted to measure color. If you just wanted to do that. And if you then want a software that automatically processes these images, because we started in Lightroom where you had to do this manually, and there's still videos out there that have been viewed over 30,000 times, I think, that shows this. You could do it with Lightroom as well to some extent. Or use the dedicated eLAB Prime software to measure color, to obtain mixing recipes for the most common ceramic systems, and to be able to do the digital try-in. And then for following the mixing recipes in our system, we like to keep the stock of materials low, simply because nowadays I think the trend clearly is towards more monolithic restorations. And I think a lot of dental labs have drawers and drawers full of stuff, full of powders and colors and everything. So you don't need all the colors that a ceramic system has to offer. Often that's not even useful. The eLAB system really only uses very, very few basic shades and then 3 types of stains from Ivoclar: the red stain, the yellow stain, and the gray stain, the E21, E22, and E17. And it generates mixing recipes for it. And then we have a portioning instrument to portion these tiny amounts of stains if you want to follow recipes as well.
That means every dental technician can use eLAB system with no matter what kind of ceramic he have.
No, not no matter which kind of porcelain system, because there's thousands of porcelain systems in the market, as much as there's thousands of zirconia blanks and shades in the market. And because there is no uniform standard, they all shape them differently. And it would take up a lifetime to support them all. So we have focused on the most common ceramic system. You have to understand that eLAB, we launched eLAB, I think, in January 2016, so quite a few years ago now. We have collected a lot of data, so we know exactly what sort of cameras people use, what kind of equipment they have, and which ceramic systems are the most popular. And it's no surprise that, when I look at this database, like Emacs is number one by far, right? And then it's followed by something like Creations at ICT, Noritake, very popular ceramic systems. And I think for this type of work, for single anterior types of restorations, that's just how it seems to be. So this is about over 80% of the market.
Great.
When it comes to this type of work.
Great. Amazing. Okay. And is the system more for the lab or for the chair side?
It's for the lab.
For the lab.
Yeah, it's for the
okay.
lab. So it was designed to address single center shade matching, shade sensitive restorations in the aesthetic zone. It was designed for that. I don't think you need it if you want to do like multiple restorations from K9 to K9. I also don't really think that it's anything like this is useful for monolithic restorations, just because the idea behind monolithic restorations was to make money quick and not to spend the whole day measuring stuff, staining it, photographing it, checking, staining, checking, photographing it. My view is for single center restoration, you probably still have to layer the ceramic in one form or another.
Okay.
Maybe not entirely, but you will need some layering, in my opinion.
Yeah. What do you say about this dental technician who are not able to take the photos in the clinic, or they're working with a dentist from other part of the world? So in this case, the dentist needs also this equipment, the gray card, camera, light, and
well, again, I mean,
could work together.
In most cases, 98% of the cases, they don't need to buy a camera; they already have one.
They have one.
So the camera is something you already have. You don't need to usually buy one because you already have one. So what they need, what the practitioner will need is a polarized filter. If they haven't got one already, chances are they might. And they need a gray card. That's really all they need to get started. There's no additional investment. You don't have to buy any dedicated devices that only serve a very narrow, specific purpose.
What do you think? How important is the dental photography today? If you want to bring excellent quality and perfect restoration, how important it is?
So delivering a perfect restoration is dependent on many, many, many factors. It's not the function of a system. It's not that. That's one thing. The other thing is, you have to sort of divide this into two spheres. So one is, color measurement of teeth in vivo is very difficult.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to do scientifically. It's not easy, right? The advantage that a camera has is that it has a flash, and it excludes any stray light. So the ambient light conditions will not matter. Can't, right? Because you're having a flash, you've got a fast shutter speed, you're not catching any ambient light, right? And with other systems, dedicated systems, for instance, stray light is a problem. And that's why it's also extremely difficult to make a color measurement system based on a smartphone camera. Because you're dealing with stray light the whole time, and stray light can really make your data very, very inaccurate, right? So that means that it has the advantage of being flexible. You already have a camera. It's a fairly reliable way of measuring tooth color, but it is technique sensitive. And a lot of clinicians struggle with that because they struggle with dental photography and they struggle with adhering to a specific protocol in general, right? That certainly is a challenge, but at the same time, it's nothing that you can't learn.
Yeah.
And as far as coming up with a perfect restoration, scientifically, we don't know what a perfect restoration is or if that's even possible. We know too little about this from a scientific viewpoint. But what I can certainly tell you is that something like the eLAB system, or I believe any of the copy systems either, are not designed to replace a well-trained, experienced dental ceramist. They're designed to complement them. That's very, very important. So in my experience, those colleagues that I know that have implemented the eLAB system the fastest with the most impressive success are, without exceptions, colleagues that were very good at this already. They already had a lot of clinic experience. They were very, very good at layering the ceramic. And now having something like eLAB gives that final bit that you need to make a restoration that's as good as it can be, given the limitations of the materials and so forth.
Okay, I understand. Okay, I would like to ask you, what is the future of eLAB? What can we expect in the future from the system?
So we're looking at perfecting the system that we have at the moment and combining it with the CAD/CAM technology, basically, and adding new features that sort of go into that direction. That's the thing that we have been working on for a while, and we continue to work on for a while. But at the same time, one has to understand that this is really, in all honesty, a niche problem. Like single central shape matching, this kind of thing is a very narrow niche kind of problem. And for that, it's really quite complicated, and it's also not very cost effective. So one has to understand that this is not selling patients 10 veneers through something like an emotional mock-up or something like that. It's not that kind of thing. It's a very narrow application. And for that, it's a very, very complex problem. That's certainly the case. And there's a real danger that you come up with products that are just too complicated for most people to comprehend. So we're still trying to make it easier and to make it more reliable. But we're not going to have a system where you have a black hole and the finished crown drops out of the hole. That's what everybody wants. That's very unlikely to happen in the near future.
Okay, so your future projects are in this direction, to a combination between digital dentistry and technology.
Correct.
With eLAB. Okay, what can we expect for you for 2023?
Yeah, so we're just coming out of this era of Corona, of COVID, where courses were quite restricted, and they moved over to the online arena and this and that, and now that's just really only slowly coming back. The courses are going back online, and more people are trying to sell courses and stuff. I think some more successful than others. It's still early in this time on, but the pandemic is over now. Although now we have another conflict in Europe with the war in Ukraine and all its economic consequences that has. But we have quite a bit of courses coming up, not just by myself, but also by the eLAB instructors. But we're not at that pre-corona level yet. That's certainly the case. But we're having more and more of those lectures and courses, especially lectures. And for me personally, apart from that, I'm nearing the end of my first year as a PhD student, and I probably have another 2 years after that to go. So that's the other thing. But that ties in with my research. So it's the same thing basically.
Okay, so where can we find more information about your future courses? In your website?
On our webpage, which is emulation.me. There's an education button that you can click on, and other than that, we have a YouTube channel which has lots of videos and other resources like the elabprime.com, which also links to the YouTube channel. There's lots of tutorials there.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. So next week we have IDS in Köln. Mm-hmm. And what could we expect from you? You will be there, probably.
We're not there as exhibitors this time. We're just visiting. I think again, this IDS is really, really early. We just had one last September. People can argue whether that was needed or not. I don't think it was. But we'll be there visiting and catching up with colleagues and that, and maybe then going back to exhibiting the IDS after that.
Great. So maybe I'll see you next week. Great. Okay. So do you have something more to say about the system or your future projects or something to the colleagues all over the world?
I'm just really glad that we had this opportunity to chat. We've known each other for a while, and I believe this is the first podcast of its kind. So it's great that I'm had the opportunity to be your first podcast guest.
I'm also very happy. As I said, I make this podcast about 2 months ago, and until now we made just podcasts in Bulgaria. There's a great professionals, dentists and dental technicians over there. But I thought myself, maybe it will be great to share all the knowledge and information from professionals from all over the world. So I'm very excited and very glad you said yes to my podcast. So I thank you very, very much. And as I said, I know how precious your time and you're very busy. So I wish you a great time on ADS next week. Maybe I'll see you there.
Sure.
And so thank you so much and stay healthy and wish you everything best.
You too. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Sasha. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.